disability when it comes to navigating the real world. And what I mean by that is navigating the world that we are in today rather than the world that we were in maybe 75 years ago before the ADA was passed and before the IEP was passed and before we had independent living centers and the support professionals and the right to live in our own community independently with the support we do. So let me start out by prefacing this video by saying I'm not saying that disability history is not important. It is truly important, especially in the world that we live in today, with multiple minorities meaning harmed by today's administration or certain viewpoints that you might be experiencing. Disability history is really important, and I do recommend that you might actually take a moment and sit down and read about like Rudy Human or watch the movie The Rider Head. Those movies really help you understand where we have been as a disability community prior to the ADA or prior to any services that we have. But today's video is really about what happens when we take the advocacy movement that were developed for us in the previous life. What happens when we take those and what happens when we take those and try and implement them in our daily life today? Well, as disabled people, we are oftentimes taught to advocate as a whole or advocate as a move or advocate as a multi-governmental body, which is amazing. That is why the high for didn't happen, and that is why the Americans with Disability Act was passed. Because everything with Moody Human and others that you can see in the movie The Rider Head actually organize themselves in part of government buildings to help meditators understand that disability is a real issue or a real occurrence in their own community. And I think that is really important to remember. Most of the advocacy movements that we hear about in disability advocacy come from those who are trying to create disability systematic change, otherwise known as disability policy change. Some notable policy changes that were made would have to be the Americans with Disability Act or the IEP or otherwise known as the High Health Plan, allowing people with disability to get accommodations in the school system. Or if you really want to go further in today's 20th century, some notable policy changes that you might be interested in is making sure that the direct support professionals pay the same at a competitive rate, or even getting a ramp at my local memory state hospital. All of that advocacy has to do with systematic change and right, and we want to be integrated in society. But the real problem with disability history and disability and disability advocacy does not happen in the political framework or even in the political landscape. In my opinion, the real problem with too much understanding of disability happens when we as a disabled community take it outside of the political spectrum. What do I mean by that? Well, there are a lot of people in today's society that don't get me wrong, that are very, very make sure to have the disability rights that we do have, and I don't blame them. If we didn't have the rights that we have today, we probably still would be institutionalized. So being proud of being disabled isn't the problem. However, some people take it upon themselves because they know about a disability history, and they know how the hidden work, and they know how other people before them came to get the rights that they need. Some people in today's society will notice that they need something in their everyday life, and they will do almost anything to get it, which I think is really important. It is really important that you advocate for yourself with your case manager, with your DSP, with your legislative advocacy, but the problem begins to be apparent when that person decides that they want to try something different or push the boundary beyond what the boundary is supposed to be. The systems that are built for us as a disabled community today are built to protect us so that we are included and valued members of society, as well as having the right to connect to disabled people and share our passion and our hobby for what we may have learned in our daily life, living with the persistent disability that we might be living with. So, for example, some of that wisdom might be, how do I do laundry with cerebral palsy? How do I hire people to support me in my everyday life? How do I let people know that they may not be the right fit to support me in my life? And other things like that. So I think it is very important when we are online, and also when we are showing up online, and when we are showing up in our daily life as disabled individuals. I think it is very important that we remember where our disability history came from. However, we don't want to automatically go into height or height mode when we do not have the resources we need. We want to lean into our disability community, use the internet, do research on how somebody else might have solved the problem. Go online, ask people on their Instagram post, hey, how did you do that? How can I do that? Look up a YouTube video. Ask ChatGPT to help you solve the persistent problem. Use your resources around you before you go into height or height mode, doing a hidden or trying to put the boundaries that are built for you, because as long as we are careful about when we put the boundary for what we need, I think that is how we can ensure that when we really need something really important at a state level or even at a national level, we ensure that our voices are being heard and taken seriously, rather than using our national power that we were taught in our disability history classes, our books, and our TV shows for little issues that we might be able to solve within our local disability community online.